with the sciatic nerve, that's prohibited. So the question is, did it transfer taste into the thighs? The Ravina also Rav Acha Rav Ashi Mashari. Two opinions. Ravina said it's prohibited. Rav Acha Rav Ashi said it's permitted. So they went to go ask. Also Shaila Lamar Rav Ashi. They went to go ask Mar Rav Ashi. Amar Lahu Abba Shari. My father said that it is permitted. Amar Le Rav Acha Bar Rav Le Ravina. So Rav Acha, the son of Rav, said to Ravina, Mai daitech. What are you thinking? What's your opinion? Meaning, what's the explanation? Why is it permitted? Sorry, why is it prohibited? He asked Ravina. Ravina said it's prohibited. Why is it prohibited? How did the taste transfer from the sciatic nerve to the thigh that prohibited the whole thigh? You didn't cook it. You didn't roast it. You didn't fry it. What did you do? So he says, I go like Shmuel. Damer Shmuel. Maliach harehu kiroseach. Salting is like heating, boiling. We'll see what it means in a second. And then, this is one, it goes together. These two statements. Kavush, when you pickle something, put something in vinegar and salty water, you pickle it, that's harehu kimivushal. That's like cooking it. So both salting is like roseach, whatever that means, we'll see in a second. Kavush, pickling is like mivushal. It's not exactly like it, but it's likely that it will transfer taste. Just like mivushal, we said, is with water. Cooking is with water. Salting is also with water. It can pull taste out and transfer it. This is Shmuel's statement based off the Mishnah yesterday that differentiates between cooking and roasting. Cooking, the taste spreads throughout the entire food. But when it comes to roasting, just that top layer you could take off and you can eat the rest of it. So how could you tell me that you prohibit it? Based off Shmuel, Shmuel only said, you got to take off the top layer. So maybe you'll say that this idea of maliach hareu kiroseach, that salting is like roseach, is like heating. What kind of heating? My kiroseach could become roseach mavushal. Maybe it's like heating of cooking. And therefore, I prohibited the entire thigh because salting is like cooking, and Shmuel also agrees that cooking has the transfers taste throughout the entire food. So that's what I meant. Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara that's not necessarily a plausible suggestion because the next line that Shmuel said was pickling is like cooking, implying michlal deroseach ditzli. That roasting, when it said roseach, that salting is like heating, it wasn't heating of cooking, it was heating of roasting. And if it was heating of roasting, and you're going like Shmuel, well, according to Shmuel, roasting only prohibits the top layer, not the whole thing. Some have our version is kasha. So this is a difficulty of why Ravina prohibited the whole thing. But simply understood that we hold like Shmuel, so that salting is not going to be like cooking; it's going to be like roasting, and therefore it's only going to prohibit it on a more minimal level, and pickling is going to be like cooking, and I'll prohibit it on a larger level. Okay. Continuing laws about mixtures and transferring a taste. How you have a chulin, so and a little milk falls in. So how do you determine the 60? Well, for sure the permitted meat that's there, let that piece of pork falls in or whatever it is. For sure the permitted meat that's there will be calculated against the prohibited item that fell in. But what about there's other stuff in the pot? For example, when they evaluate how to calculate the ratio, misharin barotev, there's the sauce. Ubekipa, I don't know the English translation, ubekipa is the small residue on the bottom. Sediment, thank you. Ubechatichos, and slices of what? Other pieces.
The permitted slices in the pot.
Right, so not just the meat, but everything. You take into all the food into consideration and the sediment, and then comes a cryptic statement. Ubekidera and the pot. So what does the pot mean? So you have two options, right? Let's say you're cooking a pot. So we know, let's say, when you're boiling pasta, right? So you're not putting the water to the top of the pot. You fill it up halfway, right? So you fill it up halfway. So let's say you filled up your Chulin pot halfway. So you have two parts. The part that the pot absorbs. So that's the part that's directly touching the food. And then, especially if you have a big pot, you have a whole half the pot that would never touch the food. So when you calculate how much we take into consideration corresponding to the prohibited item that fell in, you take the pot into consideration. That's what it says. The question is, what do you mean by the pot? Do you mean the part that the pot absorbed, or do you mean take the whole pot into consideration? Now, I don't remember 100%, but what popped into my head was the reason why you take the whole pot into consideration is because things rise, things spread. Even the food that absorbed into the pot, but it spread throughout the other parts of the pot too. So that's the question. How do you evaluate it? So yeah. Now to one opinion says you take the pot into account, and one says you take that which the pot absorbed. Now, to be a little more accurate in what the Gemara is saying is that, let's say you have a piece of meat, right? So where Rashi explains is that you saw a piece of meat fall in before it shriveled, before it got cooked. So how do you calculate it? Do you say, well, look, we had whatever it is, this 100 piece of meat beforehand, and now there's a little piece of meat, and some of it got absorbed in the pot, and now that there is some absorbed in the pot, so there's not enough meat that's left in the pot to nullify the milk. There's only a little bit of meat left. The rest was absorbed in the pot. Or you go the other way also. How much permitted stuff was absorbed in the pot? That's if you take into consideration how much the pot absorbed. If you take into consideration the entire pot, so you would have, let's say you only have 50 permitted foods, but if you calculate the pot, you now get 60. Probably you have 59, and you count the pot, you get 60 permitted foods. Together with the pot, it'll be 60 times the prohibited mixture. So which way do you calculate? So okay, we're going to see more about this on the next page. But yeah. One second. Yeah. So Rashi says because there's two opinions here, so you have to be stringent. You have to be stringent, and you won't take the entire pot into account and nullify the prohibited mixture. That's a big leniency. Rather, you only take what was absorbed, but not the whole pot into consideration. Since we're talking about prohibited mixtures, which are on a biblical level, so you have to be stringent, and therefore you are only going to take into account that which the pot absorbed, but not the whole pot into consideration. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just a
very long footnote.
Long footnote.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So
complicated.
Well, yeah. Yeah, we'll see more about it really on the next page. We'll talk about do you calculate the prohibited mixture being absorbed and the permitted mixture? So maybe we'll wait. We'll wait till the middle of the next page. So Amar Rabbi Abo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Isurin Shabbatorah Misharinan Kilu Hain Batzel V'Kaflot. So we're not going right now with the idea of 60. Now we're going to find the source, the bottom of the next page. Right now, Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Abo, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan says, all prohibitions in the Torah except for the one in the Mishnah that we had with the turnip, but that was halacha Moshe Sinai. But the rest of the forbidden mixtures, you calculate them with literally onion and kaflot. Kaflot is a leek. Thank you. Meaning, these things are sharp. So what you do is you take the prohibition, and you'd say, if this was an onion, so what's the ratio? If this prohibition was an onion or a leek, so how much taste would that give over to the permitted mixture? So if it would give over, I mean, there's not 60 corresponding to it, then it's going to prohibit it. And if not. So you use these as your measurements. One sec. Once you're going with sharp things, well, by spices, peppers and spices, those things are so sharp that even if you have 1,000 things corresponding to it, it's still going to be prohibited. Things that are so sharp, they give so much taste, they're not nullified they're not nullified with 60, not even 1,000. So why'd you stop at an onion? Once you're taking sharp things into consideration, maybe even peppers and other spices. No, that's what the rabbis evaluated, that's how much that's what they're going to use, an onion and a leek, and that they're not going to take every prohibition and say it's going to be the same as a spice, have a much larger necessity for nullification. Rather, they'll go with an onion and a leek. I mean, there's nothing prohibited that's going to be stronger than onion and a leek. So, okay, good. Okay. Now we're gonna have three cases: the gid, the sciatic nerve, the udder of a cow, and then we're gonna have eggs. And in each one of these cases, we're gonna calculate them. We're gonna wonder how much do you count the thing itself as part of the 60, or you need 60 outside of it. So let's say for the udder. The udder is a meat, but it has milk inside of it. Now this milk and meat is only prohibited. It's only prohibited rabbinically because it was shechted. We'll see later. But inside this udder is milk, so this falls into a pot of meat. So you need 60 times meat to nullify the milk. Do you take into consideration the entire udder? So you need 60 times the entire udder, or only 60 times the milk in the udder? How you know how much milk is there, and that's going to be a question. But eggs also, we'll see eggs. So if you have a non-kosher egg with a bunch of kosher eggs, so you need 61. And is that including the egg itself? You have 61 eggs total, or for some reason by an egg you'll need 60, or you'll need 60. You'll need 61 corresponding to the egg. And we'll see the same thing by the sciatic nerve right now. So Amar of Nachman gid b'shishim, the sciatic nerve is you need 60. However, ve'ein gid min haminyan, but it itself doesn't count as part of the calculation. You need 60 aside from it, and then it'll be nullified. Kichal b'shishim, kichal, the udder is going to be b'shishim with 60. But here's a novelty: ukichal min haminyan. It could be part of the 60, meaning its meat can join together with the other meat and nullify the milk. And now, beitza b'shishim v'ein beitza min haminyan, an egg is also nullified in 60, but it's not one of the 60. Right? You need 60 aside from it. So we'll get back to the eggs at the bottom of the page. So, okay. So now, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Breder of Mesharshia. Ukichal atzmo aser. The udder itself is rabbinically prohibited. Is prohibited. Now, it's an interesting thing because what's wrong? You have the meat of the udder. And we'll see now if it falls in and you have enough meat to nullify the milk inside the udder, so it should be good. Why would the kechal be prohibited? As long as you nullify the milk inside of it, you're good to go. It's no different than a chulin with a little bit of milk falls inside, but there's 60 times corresponding to the milk. It should be permitted. So, So kechal atzma aser, the kechal itself is prohibited. The inafo lekedera acheres oser. If the kechal falls into another pot, it is going to prohibit the other pot. So now, Amr of Ashi Kevina Be Rav Kahana. I was at the house of Kahana. Ibailon. He asked us, "Ki misharinan b'didei misharinan? Oh, b'mai the nothing b'nei misharinan. Do you calculate corresponding to the entire udder, or do you correspond to only what came out of the udder, which is the part that we really care about, is the milk? So pshita de b'didei misharinan. It's obvious that we have to nullify the entire udder. Why? If it's what came out, I know how much came out. How much came out? How are you going to calculate how much came out? So this is, I believe, is a general rule. We don't deal with udder so much, but whenever you don't know, you don't start calculating. You say it's corresponding to the whole prohibition. Let's say you have a piece of pork will fall into the chulin. Quickly, you take out the piece of pork within a minute or two, right? So now you can very fairly assume that not the entire taste of the pork came out into your chulin. So how much that came out? How are you going to calculate it? So you have to calculate according to the entire piece because you know how much came out. Yeah, no 10-second rule there yet. Ella me'ata. If that's true though, nafalik context. So then why, if the kechal got nullified with 60, and we're saying it's nullified corresponding to the kechal itself, so why, when it falls into another pot, do we say that it's going to prohibit? What's prohibited about it? It already got nullified in 60. So says the Gemara, it's two separate things. Came into Amar of Yitzchak Breder Misharshia, ukechal atma aser. The kechal itself is prohibited. Why? Shavye Rabbanan kechaticha nevela. The rabbis prohibited this kechal like a piece of nevela. So it's two separate things. One is it can fall in and it can get the milk nullified. That's one halacha. It's another halacha that we treat the kechal like a piece of nevela, like a piece of a piece of prohibition, and therefore, just like a piece of nevela, of non-kosher meat falls in, it'll prohibit. So to the kechal will also prohibit. Okay. Now, yeah. Now on to eggs. So, beta b'shishimei and beta b'neminion. A egg is nullified in 60, but the egg doesn't count as part of that 60. So now, nullification with an egg. What are we talking about? It sounds like lamemra the yahavataima. The egg gives off, when you cook eggs together, they give off flavor one to the other. Enough flavor that if you had a prohibited egg, it would cause a prohibition. So we're not saying there's zero taste. It has to be the way the Rishonim explained is that tam kolish. There's something called weak taste. That's not enough to prohibit.
We're not talking about eggs in the basket. We're talking about eggs in scrambled.
Oh, you're saying why, if it has a shell on it or not?
Yeah.
I was wondering that. I had the same question. Does a shell make a difference?
Because there's no flavor transfer through the shells.
I think that's what it's asking. Because once you're out without the shell of scrambled eggs, why is there no taste transfer? For sure there is.
Maybe fried eggs.
I thought I had the same question. Yeah, I was thinking that it's talking about with the shell. So says the Gemara, there's no taste transfer. And I'll prove it to you. By the way, people talk. The Ha'amri Inshi, people say, Kimai Debeya Ba'alma. Yeah, it's like the water of the eggs. The way they refer to eggs being cooked is just the water of the eggs. You cook eggs. What remains from the eggs? That little bit of water. That's not a taste that's going to transfer and cause prohibition. So what did you mean when you said that you have 60 eggs and you're going to get nullified? Amrle, how come I skinon? What are we talking about? Next page. The beitzas efroach, where you have inside of the egg, you have a chick. Since you have a chick in the egg and then it gets cooked, it doesn't really matter if it came from a kosher or not kosher. The point is that inside the egg, what's that? That's called an unfertilized egg? It's a fertilized egg with the chicken side. So that gives off meat. That will give off flavor. The beitzas efroach aval tmeya low. But just a non-kosher egg, without any chicken side, will not give off any flavor. On that, the Gemara says, Eisve, I have a problem. Beitzim shtahorus. Kosher eggs, the word tar and tamei means pure and impure, but it's used to mean kosher, not kosher. Shalkan in beitzim tmeos. So you have the OU eggs and the not OU eggs, and they are cooked together. If they give off taste from the prohibited egg to the other eggs, meaning there is not 60 permitted eggs corresponding to the prohibited eggs, kulon asuros. They're all prohibited. So we say hachanami bebeitza safroach. So to here hachanami bebeitza safroach. So to here by an egg that has a chick inside. So they are. You're cooking them. You're boiling them in the water. Yeah. So the Gemara says that if it has a chicken side, so then it's going to be if it gives taste over, it's going to prohibit. So we say so too hachanami bebeitza safroach. So too. Oh, 1 second. Sorry. So the Gemara earlier said that aval tmeya lo, but a non-kosher egg does not give off taste. So we're saying now it doesn't matter if it's kosher or not kosher. The question is there a chicken side? If there's a chicken side, so then it's going to be prohibited if it's not nullified, and if not. So we say, yeah, hachanami. Our case also is talking about bebeitza safroach, an egg that has a chicken side. Okay, but we didn't call it that. We called it tmeya. So why did you call it tmeya? V'mai karila tmeya. Kevan de isba froach karila tmeya. Even though tmeya usually means not kosher, since there's a chicken side, we refer to it as non-kosher since it's able to give off the non-kosher taste. Yeah. Now, okay. The end of the brisa said, Beitim sheshalkam v'nimtza afroch v'achas menim yishlan bozim nostam kulan asuros mechlal dereishut lesba afroch askinan. We're saying that it sounds like there's two cases here. The end of the brisa is talking about where there is a chicken side. That implies that the beginning of the brisa, that our brisa, the end of the last word, the second line of the page said that you have kosher eggs that are cooked together, so that's fine. Non-kosher eggs, it depends if they give off taste. That was the question, because we said non-kosher eggs, we don't care. Eggs don't give off taste. We said, no. We said it's referring to an egg with a chicken side. The egg with a chicken side is not usually referred to as tmeya. Tmeya means not kosher. No, here it is. So, and that's how we answered our question. That really, eggs without a chicken side that are boiled together do not give off taste. Eggs with a chicken side that cook together do give off taste. But now the Gemara is saying, you can't tell me that the beginning of the brisa that says tmeya, which we thought meant non-kosher, but now we're translating as with a chicken side. That can't be the case because the end of that brisa is already talking about a case with a chicken side. So that means that the beginning of the brisa is talking about an egg from a non-kosher animal, even with no chicken side. And therefore, we say that it'll give off, it'll impart flavor and prohibit the kosher eggs. To that, we had a question, but we thought eggs don't give off flavor. So we're saying, you're right, we're going to keep it as really one case. And the end of the brisa is just explaining the beginning of the brisa. Prushe kamefarish. The beginning of the brisa is coming to explain, the end of the brisa is coming to explain the beginning of the brisa. Beitim tahor sheshalkanim beitim tameos. You have kosher eggs cooked with non-kosher eggs. If they give off flavor, they're going to be prohibited. What's the case? You have to add in these words. Ketzad. The case is where you cook them and you found in one of the eggs a bird. That's where, when they're cooked together, they will impart flavor. It's actually very logical to say that this whole brisa, which sounds like two cases, is actually referring to one case. If the beginning case was where there's no chicken side, well, so make a logical deduction. If you have two cases, case one is egg from non-kosher animal, no chicken side, and you're still telling me if that's cooked with kosher eggs, it's going to impart flavor and prohibit the kosher eggs, well, then do a simple equation. For sure, if the egg had a chicken side, it's not necessary to speak it out that it'll prohibit the other eggs. That's obvious. Even an egg which has so little flavor to impart, and yet it will prohibit, for sure, an egg with a chicken side, for sure will prohibit. So it's more logical to say that it's one case, and the end is just explaining the beginning. So these are not necessary. It's obvious. So says the Gemara, not necessarily. You could still wiggle your way out of it and say it's referring to, like the words seem to imply, two cases. Imishum hollow area. That's not such a kasha. That's not such a big deal. Why? Tana seifa legiluya reisha. The brisa still had to say the second case. So it's two. It could be two cases. Case one is egg from non-kosher animal. Case two is egg. We don't care where it came from, but it has a chicken side. And it was still necessary to state the second case. Why? To tell us, to be megala, to reveal to us what the first case was talking about. Meaning, don't think that when the first case said, don't say when the first case said Tmeya, it was referring to a case where it had a chicken side. Rather, I'll teach you a second case to show you that the first case was talking about a case where there is no chicken side. So you could still wiggle your way out of it. So if you'll ask me a question on my statement, I'll tell you it's talking about one case. Now, I don't have a proof it's conclusively talking about one case. It's more logical, but you could wiggle your way out of it, and it could be talking about two cases. So basically, two ways to understand this brisa. Either if it's two cases, it's a question on our statement that eggs don't transfer taste. If it's one case, it's talking about an egg with a chicken side, their taste will be transferred, and therefore it's not a question. With no burden side, it'll be permitted. That would be the novelty if it's two cases, that even though the second case has a chicken side, implying that the first case has no chicken side, it'll still be prohibited, which is very interesting because it's a very weak flavor that is being transferred. Okay, now. So does this mean you guys go to kill all your eggs before you eat any of them? If you don't know where it came from.
You get a bunch of eggs.
You have no idea where they came from. Kosher or not kosher animals?
Let's say kosher animals. Kosher chickens.
Okay.
Okay. But if there's a chicken egg, and they're all...
As long as there's not 60 corresponding to it. Okay. But you don't have so many eggs. Less 60 eggs. Okay.
Let's say you've got 8 eggs.
You got to figure it out, right? Each egg might be prohibited, so you got to figure it out, right? Exactly, yeah. Oh, once you cook it.
Yeah.
Right.
So you got to kill all your eggs before you can eat anything.
Now, there could be even a problem of cooking that like that. If you know there's a prohibited egg in here.
No, you don't know there's a prohibited egg.
So why are you worried that there might be a prohibited egg?
Because these are eggs that come from the farm.
So there's a good chance?
So free range, there's hens and
it's like a real suffix. It's a real suffix, a real doubt.
Yeah, that come from.
So it could be it's prohibited to cook them to begin with because of another prohibition, or you can't nullify prohibitions.
Sometimes you get eggs and they've got a blood spot.
Okay, that's also a question, right?
Okay, so the natural conclusion is, an assumption is that egg was allowed to develop further.
Mm-hmm.
That could have.
Check.
That could have developed a chick. So, I mean, where do chicks come from? They come from eggs.
Okay. What came first?
So you let it go, and it's from
right.
a big farm. And some of the eggs are used for hatching, and some of the eggs are used for food.
Right.
And some of them could have got mixed up.
So once again, if it's after you cook them, for sure you have to check. But if you have a real doubt that there might be a prohibited egg here because it has a chicken side, it could be a real question: can you cook them originally without being?
You buy eggs from the farm.
I'm saying so. It could be a problem. You have to figure out how to do it. Yeah. That's a good question. Ein mebasar tzol lechatchila on a suffix. Yeah. If that's the Phillips. Phillips does have 2 chickens. Tarash your minion also is not bottle. Good. Can't be bottle eggs. Okay, but Agamar says Shishim. You have to know. Good question. That's a good question. How do you deal with that with Tarash your minion? I don't know. Okay, Mr. Rosenberg asking a good question. Okay, fine. So, how kazes the tarba the nafal b'dikula de bisra? So you have a olive's worth of tarba, the fat that fell into a pot of meat. So now, savar asi l'shure b'may de bala dikula. So here we go. What we mentioned earlier. So he looks at the pot, and Rav Ashi wanted to see how much of the pot was absorbed. How much of the pot absorbed? So he takes into what the pot absorbed, and then he takes the permitted part. So let's say you have you have 55 permitted corresponding to the 1 prohibited, but then you take how much the pot actually absorbed, and you put it together, and it absorbed. Now you have 60. So as the meat shrinks, where does it go? So that flavor is going to the pot. So you have now, including what the pot absorbed, corresponding to the prohibition, you have 60. So, Amr le Rabban le Rav Ashi. So they said to Rav Ashi, "I'll do the terabala yisur labala," but it has to go both ways. The pot absorbed the permitted meat; it also absorbed the prohibited meat. So you can't just look at it that it absorbed the permitted and not the prohibited. So if you have a non-kosher piece of meat that falls in a fat or whatever it is, pork, whatever it is, so yes, the pot absorbs some of the permitted meat because it shrinks and the juice goes into the pot, but also the prohibited meat is also in there. So you have to always work with the ratio. So in the pot is absorbed permitted and absorbed also prohibited things. So now you have not a biblical prohibition, you have half an olive's worth of tarba, half. The tarba of forbidden fat, but because it's not a kazayas, it's only a half a kazayas, it's going to be rabbinic. The nafal b'dikul de bisra fell into a pot of meat. So some are Marbar Ravashi's son, Marbar Ravashi, l'shiure betlatin palga de zesa. He wanted a ratio 1:30, not 1:60. Amr le'avu, his father told him, "Didn't I tell you? Av milach lo tizalzel b'shire derabanan." Even though it's not biblically prohibited, but don't be mezalzel, don't denigrate the shiurin that the rabbis made. So meaning that they have a number 60. So just because this is rabbinic doesn't mean you can take that number and make it into 30. So the Od Hamar Rabbi Chetzi Shir Asar Min Torah, and this is 2 opinions in Yuma, that when you have and we hold like Rabbi Yochanan, that when you have a biblical prohibition of an olive's worth of forbidden fat, so maybe you'll say, perfect, I can have half an olive's worth. So the answer is that's also according to Rabbi Yochanan biblically prohibited. He has 2 reasons why it's prohibited, but it's called Chatzi Shir Asar Min Torah, very, very important. That even a Chatzi Shir, even half of a Shir is still prohibited biblically. You won't get malchus for it. You won't get punished for it, but it's still prohibited. Even if you eat something biblically prohibited, just you eat less than the requisite amount, that's still a problem, a biblical problem. You just won't get lashes. Amar Rav Shimon bar Abba, Amar Rav Idi bar Id, Amar Rav Idi bar Gershom, Amar Levi bar Prata, Amar Rabbi Nachum, Amar Rabbi Biryam Mishum Sakin Echad. All of these in the name of one elder, Rabbi Yaakov Shmei. And who was it? Rabbi Yaakov, the Beit Nesiah from the house of the monarchs of the Nasi. Yeah, Amru, they said Beitza b'shishim asura, that an egg, a non-kosher egg, in 60 is prohibited, but all of a sudden b'shishim v'achas is muteris. The way you know if eggs is you have to have 61 permitted eggs corresponding to prohibited eggs, not 60 to 1, and therefore you're going to have 61 total. You have to have 62 total. 61. Right. Only by eggs, though. They explain because eggs come in different sizes. You add 1 to make sure. So small, medium, large. So Amar B'Zeir Rav Shimon bar Abba, that you're adding, you placed a gvul heter that so meaning you made a fence that people shouldn't make mistakes. Oh, I mean, he didn't. We'll see now. He didn't explain. He said it, but he didn't explain. So people could stumble. Why? We'll see. What would the stumbling be? So we'll say now. There was two leaders of the generation. They didn't explain what this means. 61. Let's see. Lo Pirshos ever Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani Travayu Mishmei Rabbi Shua ben Levi. They both said the name of Shua ben Levi. Amri Beita B'Shishim Asura B'Shishim Achas Muteris. They said 60 prohibited, 61 permitted, but they didn't explain what 61 permitted is. 61 including or 61 not including. 62 total. That they didn't explain. 60 total for sure prohibited. 61 permitted. What's 61? 61 not including, therefore it's really 62 total, or 61 yeah including. And we asked the Bailu B'Shishim Achas Bahadi Dida, including it, which is our classic case of 60. Dilma Lebarmina, excluding it. So 61 excluding the prohibited egg. Below Pashit Mar. So they didn't explain, and you come along and say, Umar Pashla Mifshat, and you're coming to say something definitive. So this is a question. So by you saying this, you're going to have people stumble. You just said it definitively, and they had a question. You say definitively. So that's going to cause people to stumble. So now, 1 second. Yeah. So what time is it? 56. Itma Amar B'Yachal Amar of Huna Beitza B'Shishim V'Hi Asura B'Shishim V'Achas V'Hi Muteris. So Rav Chal and then Rav Huna Beitza B'Shishim, an egg in 60 other eggs is going to be prohibited. B'Shishim V'Achas, if it's in 61 other eggs, so 62 total, then it'll be permitted. Including it? No. Yeah, okay. So, fine. Okay. We'll stop here. Right.